Let me tell you a story about hope, friendship, and an unbreakable spirit. It begins in 1947 with a quiet banker named Andy Dufresne. Andy was convicted of murdering his wife and her lover, a golf pro. Though he insisted he was innocent, his cold, emotionless demeanor in court didn't help him. He was sentenced to 2 life terms at Shawshank State Prison, a brutal place where hope rarely survived. At Shawshank, we meet Ellis "Red" Redding, a long-time inmate and a man who could smuggle just about anything into prison for a price. Red had been denied parole yet again, but he took it in stride. When Andy arrived with a group of new prisoners, the older inmates bet on which one would crack first that night. Red bet big on Andy, thinking the soft-spoken banker wouldn't last a day, but Andy didn't cry. Another man did nicknamed Fat Ass and was beaten so badly by a guard that he died by morning. Red noticed something different about Andy. He didn't act like the others. He kept to himself and stayed composed. One day, Andy approached Red and requested a tiny rock hammer, claiming he liked to sculpt. Red assumed he might try to tunnel his way out, but the hammer was so small, it seemed laughable. Life wasn't easy for Andy. He was targeted and assaulted by a group of inmates known as the Sisters, led by a man named Boggs. Andy endured beatings and abuse for 2 years, until, during a roof-tiring job, everything changed. Andy overheard a guard, Captain Hadley, complaining about losing his inheritance to taxes. Andy bravely offered financial advice, showing him how to legally shield the money. Hadley nearly threw him off the roof but changed his mind. Instead, he gave beers to all the inmates on the job. That moment of simple freedom, the men enjoying cold beers in the sun cemented Andy's place among them. From then on, Andy began doing financial work for the guards and eventually the warden himself, Samuel Norton. He was moved out of the laundry and into the library to help an aging inmate, Brooks. But it was really so he could help the prison staff cook their books. Brooks, after 50 years inside, was granted parole, but couldn't handle life outside. Lost and alone, he took his own life, leaving behind the haunting words. Brooks was here. Andy was determined not to end up like Brooks. He began writing letters to the state for library funds. Years passed, and he finally got results, books, records, and $200. He played Mozart over the prison PA system, a moment so pure that it landed him in solitary for 2 weeks. But Andy believed in something stronger than punishment hope. His efforts grew the library, and he began helping inmates earn high school diplomas. Red, who'd become his closest friend, was amazed at what Andy had built in such a hopeless place. Then came Tommy, a young thief with a baby at home. Andy encouraged him to study and helped him pass his GED. But when Tommy revealed that a former cellmate had confessed to the exact crime Andy was in for, Andy saw a chance at justice. He told the warden, but Norton was too deep in corruption. Fearing exposure, he had Tommy killed and threw Andy into solitary for 2 months. When Andy came out, he was different, quiet, distant. He spoke of a dream, Zihuatanejo, a Mexican beach town. He told Red that if he were ever free, he'd go there. He even asked Red to visit a spot in Buxton under a specific tree, just in case. Red feared Andy might take his own life, but the next morning, Andy was gone. The guards tore his cell apart. The warden hurled a rock at the Rita Hayworth poster on Andy's wall and it vanished into a deep tunnel. For 20 years, Andy had been digging, a spoonful at a time, using the rock hammer Red had smuggled in. That night, he crawled through the tunnel and miles of sewage pipes to freedom. But Andy didn't just escape. He exposed Norton's money laundering operation, withdrew all the cash as the fake identity he'd built Randall Stevens, and sent the evidence to the press. Hadley was arrested. Norton, facing disgrace, took his own life. Red was finally granted parole in 1967, after 40 years. Like Brooks, he struggled on the outside until he remembered Andy's promise. He went to Buxton, found the tree, and under it a box. Inside was money and a letter. Andy had invited Red to join him in Mexico. Red, breaking parole, took a bus to the border, free at last in spirit, if not by law. On the shores of the Pacific, under the blazing sun of Zihuatanejo, Red found Andy again, his friend, waiting, just like he'd said. And that's the story of how a wrongly convicted man refused to let the prison break him, and how Hope quiet, patient, and persistent to freedom, not just for one man, but for two. Please like, subscribe, and share our channel.